Hello, everyone. I had a friend today that asked me, he says he's going to go on a meat diet for 30 days. And he asked me, what do I think about that? And I don't think he's really interested in listening to me. So I've not really given him much of a response, but I'll give you my response, I suppose, in this video to the idea of having a meat diet or eating more protein. Or he said he was eating 12 eggs a day. He also sent me a video of a doctor on YouTube with a huge channel, millions of followers, that was making a video about glycine, an amino acid, I think, and talking about how people need more glycine. And there was a link to, not surprisingly, a supplement underneath. Not surprisingly, because that's the business. That's why he's talking about glycine. That's the only reason he's talking about glycine. But my friend hasn't worked that out yet. And the guy talked about humans are super carnivores and stuff, and I just thought, well, this guy's doesn't really know what he's talking about. But that's not surprising. He is a medical doctor, so we can't expect him to actually have any education when it comes to um, people being healthy or anything. So, what's my thoughts on carnivore diets? On how much protein people need? On eating lots of eggs? Of supplementing protein? Well, about nearly 12 years ago, that same friend and myself were vegetarian and were kind of interested in eating more raw food, probably at around about the same time, and eating less processed food and stuff. And a lady entered our life who was a kinesiologist, which is a person that proclaims to be able to use muscle testing around your body to tell you what you should eat and what you need more of. And so she did testing with him, and she said he needed more protein and more salt as well. And it was, funnily enough, I had just been learning because I'd started to go down this path of the raw food diet, and I started to learn about nutrition and vegan nutrition. And I'd learned that you don't need salt. So the fact that she was saying he needed more salt was obviously wrong. And then I found out it was very unlikely that anyone was not getting enough protein, and incredibly unlikely with him. He was probably having more protein than he needed. So I learned that, and I remember saying that at the time, and I realized that it's the first time I really realized that people aren't really open to your information, especially if it contradicts, their business or whatever it is that she was doing, and contradicts what she's been learning. And he wouldn't listen to me then, and he's obviously never listened since, and now he's still in this same place. And I've went down this path over the last 10 years of continuing to learn and continuing to look at this information and traveling, attending events, learning from people, meeting athletes, meeting all sorts of people, and continuing to learn and expand my mind, I suppose, and then teaching it to others and researching it further. But he's not interested in that and seems to think maybe he'll convince me, that. But for me, protein is something I stopped thinking about 12 years ago. When I came across that information, when I looked at it, when I learned basic things like protein deficiency basically doesn't exist as a disease, that the World Health Organization got someone to research protein deficiency and couldn't find a case of it, that the only thing that is called protein deficiency is kwashiorkor, which is a caloric deficiency, not a protein deficiency. that the amount of protein that people need is very small, that and smaller than what is claimed. But even if what is claimed is what we need, it's easy to get on a vegan or raw vegan diet, which is like 50 grams a day for men and 42 or something for women. It's not that difficult to get those on a raw vegan diet if you want to do that. It's more difficult if you eat only fruit. And yet still, that matches in line with about 50% of that. And it's likely that the amount has been inflated, perhaps by twice at least. And there's never been a case of protein deficiency. The people have got in touch with me and said, I did a blood test, my protein was low. Well, do you have skin? Do you have eyeballs, organs? Do you have hair? Do you have, like, that's all. What do you think that's made out of? What do you think every aspect of your body is made out of? What do you think's in every single cell in your body? Like, if you didn't have protein, you'd have a real problem. And if plants didn't have protein, then animals would have a real problem, because most animals are plant eaters. And in terms of human beings as an animal, human beings historically have been plant eaters. The guys that say that human beings have been carnivores are simply lying to people. It's a simple lie. Evidence and research, as far as I've seen, on studying human anatomy, on studying the bones, on studying even what was there's ways of studying the bones or something to see what's been in people's diets. And people were eating a lot of plants. People were eating more fiber. People were eating more of the nutrients that are in plant foods historically than now. This idea of the paleo diet, of being a diet high in meat, was not correct. And Paleolithic man was eating mostly plants. If you just look into recent history, people have been eating plants. The longest living people in the blue zones eat a plant-based diet, don't eat a lot of meat. The longest living population, healthiest population in the United States, is the people of Loma Linda, California, the Seventh-day Adventists. They tend to be vegetarian or vegan, plant-based at least. Animal foods have more and more been connected with chronic diseases, particularly heart disease, which is one of the main diseases that kill people, due to the fact that animal foods are high in saturated fat. Saturated fat is the contributing link towards heart disease, along with other things, but saturated fat is the main thing. And what we've learned is when we take saturated fat out of the diet, when we take animal products out of the diet, that what we find is we find a reversal of heart disease. This has been scientifically studied. There's evidence for that, and it is the only diet that's ever been found, plant-based diet, a low-fat plant-based diet, to reverse heart disease. At the same time, if we want to reverse diabetes, the same thing will happen when we are on a low-fat plant-based diet, because the heart disease and the diabetes are both being caused by the same problem, which is a diet high in saturated fat, which is animal products. Animal products being meat, dairy, fish, eggs, and also you can include oils for unhealthy vegans, unhealthy vegetarians. So oils can be a problem as well. So disease is being connected. Disease is also connected with a high protein diet. High protein is not connected with health, it's connected with health issues. And there aren't really good long-term studies on people doing high protein or carnivore diets, because they tend not to study it. We already understand the mechanisms of how these diets work, and they do not lead to better health for people. There was one study I remember that showed a decline in kidney function within a year or a year and a half or something. Within a short period of time, there was a decline in kidney function. Now that's okay. You've got two kidneys, you can damage them, you'll be fine. but it's not ideal, is it? You know, the idea that you're actively doing a diet that's damaging your kidney function is not particularly smart, but that's what a high protein diet does. Your kidney has to process those excess proteins. When it comes to, so longevity wise, we find plant-based to be the answer. In terms of disease, we're finding heart disease connected with animal products. We're finding more and more cancer being connected with animal products. But in particular, I mean, red meat and processed meat have already been classed as carcinogens. T. Colin Campbell, who did the China study, they found that regions that were higher in animal products had more disease, had more cancer. He personally found in a laboratory that casein from cow's milk was one of the highest or the most powerful carcinogen in terms of nutrition wise that he had ever studied. The connection between animal foods and disease, from what I've seen, is very clear. And the connection between taking animal foods out of the diet and people recovering is also very clear. High blood pressure is another example of just the blockages of the artery that come from a diet high in saturated fat. Autoimmune conditions can be connected with animal products, not all the time, but often can be, because proteins from animals' proteins can, in some cases, leak into the bloodstream through a leaky gut, so through a damaged gut, can leak into the bloodstream, and the body creates antibodies against animal proteins. And if those animal proteins are like proteins that we have, which is quite often the case, then there's a good chance that those antibodies will destroy some of our own tissues. And that's how some of these diseases work. An example, and a good example of that is if there are autoimmune diseases where the parts of the brain are getting destroyed, well, are there parts of animal brains in some foods? Are there brain-like structures in your hot dogs, in your beef burgers? Yeah, they mix everything up. Throw it all in there. And then could antibodies be being made against brain tissue that then our own antibodies are destroying our own brain tissue? Could that be happening? Could that be the cause of multiple sclerosis and other things? Well, that's certainly one theory. So, what about digestive problems that people suffer from? Well, for our digestion to function properly, we really need fiber. It's an essential part of our diet. Animal products have no fiber. But the human digestive system matches very closely other primate digestive systems. So we can get into comparative anatomy and say, well, humans are most similar to the primates, and the primates are mostly eating fruits and vegetables, particularly fruits for the ones that look like us. We can then analyze our nature. Do we have that carnivore instinct to go out and kill? Do we have that sense of smell to track an animal? Do we have the claws, the tearing claws, the ripping teeth? Does the sight of a dead animal or a running animal excite us and make us, froth at the lips wanting to eat that? Do we know how to kill an animal? Do we know what to eat of an animal? How to tear it off? No, we have to learn. These things are all learned. There's no instinctual action here. So what's our instincts when it comes to animals? It's generally to leave them alone, not chase after them. What's our instinct? Not to eat animals. If an animal collapses and dies in front of you, you're not eating that. That's not attractive to eat. What is attractive to eat are simple fruits. very simply. And we have sweet seeking taste buds. So there's all these different things to say don't eat animal products, go towards plant-based, go towards fruit. For me, it's a fairly simple argument. The more animal products you're going to eat, you're going to find that your cholesterol will go up. Now, I'm not going to say that people don't experience benefits when they change diet, when they try things out, when they cut things out. And if people cut out a lot of junk and processed stuff and they're on animal products for a while, they might experience a benefit or feel good or lose weight. And losing weight is generally good for people. They might also be exercising at the same time, so they get a benefit from the exercise. But in terms of real benefits from your diet, and a lot of people are doing animal product based diets cut out dairy as well, which is another advantage. And they might cut out gluten and things that might be a problem for them. But it is not a diet that feeds the body properly. It simply isn't. And you're going to see your cholesterol rise. You're going to see you increasing your risk of heart disease. You're going to see yourself increase your risk of cancer. And the fact that you're getting tremendous amounts of protein is not going to cut it. Doesn't make it a difference. Doesn't make you healthier. It's just too much protein. And it's a damaging amount. Plus, you're probably having to cook it to get it. So how much protein are you really getting out of that? Are you getting real quality protein? Unprocessed protein? Uncooked, undamaged protein? Well, it's hard to say. So that would be my basic response. But people need more than that. The fact that I've given you that, every statement I'm saying there comes with my own research, my own learning journey, my own having maybe every point I'm making, having watched or listened to or read 10 hours or 20 hours worth of information that backs that up. So it's very crystal clear for me. For you, you might hear that and go, well, that might not be true. He's probably just making that up. So I understand that. But for me, I've been down a deeper path with that. So I encourage you to look into it yourself and look into these statements and ideas. The mainstream information won't tell you all this exactly as I've laid it out. However, you will be able to find clues of it in mainstream information. There's a reason that plant-based is a more relevant approach, is more being pushed. Eating more fruits and vegetables has always been the healthy approach to diet. If you look at the food plates of the world, they're not encouraging people to eat a lot of meat. They're actually encouraging people to eat a lot of plant-based proteins when they are talking about protein, which is a mistake. But they're telling people to eat more plant-based proteins. They're telling people to cut down on salt, cut down on sugar, processed foods, cut down on dairy products. The Canadian one cut out dairy products completely. So, that's my approach to this. I don't believe that there's much evidence around eating carnivore diets or protein diets. It appeals to people. It seems to appeal to men in particular. I don't exactly know why. It probably appeals to some women as well. But there's something about it that appeals to men in particular. Maybe they think it's going to increase their testosterone or something like that. And as far as I'm aware, vegans have a higher free testosterone, but tend to have the same amount of, I can't remember, there's two types of testosterone. Vegans have a higher amount of one of them, however, they have the same amount of the other one. Another aspect about protein is the good statement that when we need the most protein is when we're doubling in size, which is when we're a baby. And breast milk, humans' breast milk has the lowest amount of protein of any breast milk. Think about that deeply. Human breast milk has the lowest amount of protein of any animal breast milk. Think about that. What does that statement say about our need for protein? It's about 5%. How much protein in a fruit diet? 5%. Everything points towards us being frugivores. Everything. So the frugivore diet, the fruit-based diet, is the way to better health. This is the way to better health. This is the way to a better planet. This is the way to a better environment. This is a way for a better life for animals, for a better oxygen pollution situation, using less land, having more trees, food becoming virtually free. We'd have it growing all around us all the time. You know, it's such a simple thing that works so profoundly well. So feel free to put your comments below. Feel free to subscribe. I'll see you in another video. And thank you very much.